This is the iFootage Shark Slider Nano, which simply put is quite possibly the best bang for your buck if you're a creator looking to expand your abilities when it comes to camera movement. The Nano is certainly an intriguing slider for those that are looking for a slider within the price range that this falls within. But before I get to talking a little bit more about the slider, let me introduce myself first. Hello, my name is Carson Miller and I make videos about drones and various other facets of technology. iFootage did send me this slider as well as their TC7 tripod and the Komodo K5 tripod head, but they are not paying me to say anything in this video, and they are seeing this video at the very first time as you guys. So all opinions are my own. But with that said, let's take a look at what you get inside the box of the slider. Once opened up, you'll find that the bundle version of the slider comes in a high quality carrying bag, which my only complaint with is that it doesn't come with any shoulder strap loops or even a shoulder strap, but otherwise the bag is quite nice. With the slider, you get an included phone mount, so you can place a phone on the slider if you wish. Also a welcomed inclusion is the battery. The included Sony NPF style battery should allow the slider to stay up and running for a total of 4 hours of continuous use. Additionally, you can go and power the slider with a standard USB-C charger, which if you have a battery plugged into the slider and a USB-C charger, the slider will not only go and power itself off of the USB-C, but it will also charge your battery at the same time. Moving on to the star of the show though, the slider. With it, you get some documentation as well as a plethora of shutter trigger cables for use with the built-in time-lapse mode. And then of course you get the slider itself, which is pretty reasonably hefty at a solid 4.7 pounds, but for this size, it's understandable considering everything that's packed into this in such a small package. And even still, the weight is much less than larger sliders on the market that don't even come with the touchscreen or any other cool features. As I already mentioned, I was also sent iFootage's TC7 tripod, which is incredibly light due to its carbon fiber legs, yet at the same time packing massive extension capabilities. If you get one yourself, it comes with all the standard things that you would expect from a tripod, minus the head itself, which if you are looking for one, now it comes the Komodo K5, which is also sent to me by iFootage, and I think that it can certainly do the trick. Being a 360-degree fluid head, you're able to get ultra smooth shots, and the overall build quality of this tripod head is phenomenal because everything on this head is made of metal. But anyways, let's talk about the slider because that's what you're really here for, right? Well, to begin, if you didn't already notice, the slider, as I mentioned, is a bi-directional slider, meaning it does one of those things where it will basically slide over itself and double the length of the slider in comparison to if it's just sitting on a surface. So when you have it mounted on a tripod, you'll be able to have double the length of travel as you would if you had it sitting on a surface. While you may look at that and be like, why would I want it to travel like that? This is actually pretty convenient because it allows you to go and have an incredibly compact slider that essentially can be thrown into even small backpacks, but all the while still being able to travel 400 millimeters or 16 inches on a tripod, as well as half of that around 200 millimeters or 8 inches when it's just sitting flat on a surface. Whenever you're starting the slider up, you're gonna wanna make sure that you go and unlock the slider before powering it on. Simply do that by pressing down and rotating clockwise the lock and unlock knob. Then after that, all you have to do is go ahead and press and hold the power button on the slider until the screen turns on. Once you've seen that happen, then all you gotta do is sit and wait because it has to go and calibrate the slider and return it to the home position so then it can get ready to go. Before you can actually use it, you do have to go and confirm that the camera is perpendicular to the slider. Then you just click confirm and you're all set. Once that's occurred, the way that I personally have always dreamt of using a slider is just to provide it with a point A and a point B, and then allow it to do all of that by itself. And the cool thing about the Shark Slider Nano is that it can do just that magnificently. To do this, all you have to do is simultaneously push both of the two buttons below the screen on the slider. And from here, all you have to do is provide the slider a point A, press A on the screen, go to point B, you can move the tripod head, pan head, wherever you want, press B, and then click confirm. After you've done that, you just click on standby and it will return the slider to the home position. And then from there, the cool part is all you have to do is press the play button and it will go and replay the move for you. Now, this is a little bit slow, I will say. So you can go and adjust the speed as well to whatever you wish based on time or based on the speed overall that the slider can achieve. So 0 to 100% speed. Then from there, you just go back. Then you can replay the move again. And as you can see, it replays the move for you and does everything. Perfect. That is exactly what I want out of a slider. On top of that, if just replaying the shot and moving one time is not enough for you, you can go and allow the slider to continuously loop over that same movement back and forth until you go and stop it. If you're doing an interview and you just want the slider to move without any input, then it can just continuously do this throughout the entire interview. This slider really was truly built for those who are interested in obtaining smooth moving shots easily without a bunch of hassle. Something to note is that if you have a camera with built-in stabilization, IBIS, you will want to go and make sure you turn that off, because if you allow that to remain on, when the slider comes to a stop, you will typically see the IBIS continuing its movement a little more than the stop point, which ends up looking not too great. So I would advise turning IBIS off, and it can also affect the shot in the middle of the move as well if the IBIS is kind of adjusting for micro jitters and whatnot. Aside from that, the slider can support cameras up to 7.7 pounds in desktop mode, 5.5 pounds when mounted to a tripod, and 4.4 pounds when used in vertical mode. You'll want to be especially sure when you are using gear that pushes up near that limit that you are properly balancing your camera on top of your tripod head that is being used, or else if you have an off-center weight on the slider, you might notice some strain on the slider, and sometimes you may not even be able to calibrate the slider properly, or it won't be able to calibrate itself properly, I should say, if you don't balance your camera evenly. I have so far been using the slider on a tripod, which I assume is likely how the majority of use cases will go, but if you choose to use the slider on a flat surface, then there are a couple of things to note. Firstly, the slider has 2 adjustable feet so that you can level the slider on pretty much any surface and prevent it from rocking back and forth if you find yourself in such a scenario. Secondly, and this one I suppose also applies to being used in tripod mode as well, but there is a carriage tension adjustment knob here on the front. So if you find yourself being in a scenario where your carriage is being a little noisy or it's not moving smoothly as you would wish, I would adjust this as necessary, especially when you are in a different temperature environment than when you were in last, such as going from freezing cold to really hot. Otherwise though, you can use the slider just as you would on a tripod, but for, shorter moves. Now also feels like a great time to mention how incredibly quiet this slider is. iFootage's measurements suggest that it's at a 38 decibel average in working conditions, and I would believe it because just give it a listen yourself. Like, you can't hear anything at all. I mean, I am outside in conditions where there's birds and stuff around, even wind, but even in the quietness of my own room, which I'll also give you a listen to right now, it's still super quiet, right? I didn't adjust any of the levels, and you heard out of the mic at the exact same level as you're hearing me right now. So that just gives you a good idea of how very quiet this is. It's not loud at all. This makes this slider perfect for low budget filmmakers, or honestly even not low budget filmmakers. If you need a small slider to get in a small space, this is your way to go. But this will allow you to go and do lots of interviews and have movements without having any worries whatsoever that the slider will interfere with the audio in your shots, which is something that is just unbeatable in my opinion. The slider accepts both 1/4-20 threaded heads and cameras, as well as 3/8/16 without any adapters, because it's already built spring-loaded into the threads of the slider. And gotta say, the amount of times that I've lost those little tiny adapters from 1/4-20 to 3/8/16 is ridiculous. So it being built right in with the spring-loaded is pretty cool. Also a pro tip, when you are attaching a device to the slider, use the rotation stopping lever here on the back to prevent the rotation pan head from moving around while you are screwing on your device. And then once you're done, you just let go and the lock lever will spring back out. I found the mobile app to work pretty great for the remote movement of the slider as well as various other tasks. I don't necessarily think that I'll find myself personally using the mobile app all too often because, as I already said, I just need this for basic functionality. Point A, point B, replay it for me, that's all I can ask. And you can do exactly that on the slider itself, so why would you need a mobile app? Well, You can use the mobile app for a couple of things. Firstly, you can go and use it if you plan on using your phone to capture time lapses. So with that mobile app, it will go and trigger the shutter of your camera on your phone remotely without you needing to go and use any wires to plug into a DSLR or something like that. And it's also beneficial if you are using the mobile app to get stop motion through your camera as well. It allows you to go and set that up in a more granular way that on the screen here doesn't really allow you to do. But for me personally, because I don't use either of these, the mobile app isn't really needed, but I still do appreciate it that it's there in the event that I want to use it in the future. With a phone attached right now, I think now is the best time to mention once again that you can get vertical shots with the slider. Now, you won't be getting those with a DSLR or other various gear, at least not without purchasing an L bracket, because that does not come included with the slider. However, it does come with the phone mount, and the cool thing with the phone mount is that you can go and rotate it so you can use the slider for vertical shots. Do your point A, point B just as you would before, and once you've got the move programmed, you just press start like you would with anything else. And as you can see, you now have vertical capabilities with this slider as well. Now, while there are a couple more features that I haven't touched on yet, such as that time-lapse mode or stop motion, I just personally don't really use that either, so I can't really say much about it, but I can assume that the slider would do the intended actions perfectly based on what I've seen with everything else that it can do. There are a few things that I wish Gen 2 will have in the future, but it doesn't take away from how great this Gen 1 is. So with those things that I would recommend iFootage to fix in the future, there are a couple of things. Firstly, I think the slider's lock and unlock wheel here is a great idea and certainly necessary, but it should be easier to tell whether or not the slider is locked or unlocked or not, because the small little dot that's here isn't super easy to see. I mean, you can see it, but when you're in the fly and you're trying to get something really quickly, then it's not totally that easy. Secondly, I hate the fact that the slider can be in the same exact position that you left it off with. You power it off, you come back to it, turn it on once again, and it has to recalibrate. There should be some form of permanent memory inside, which there clearly is because it's running an OS. And when it shuts off, I think that it should go and just write that configuration data to the memory. And then when you power it back on, it'll ask if you want to skip the calibration or not. If you know that the slider is in the same exact position with the same camera and everything like that. Because if you could just skip that, that'd be great and save you like, 20 to 30 seconds every time you're powering it on. And then lastly, I would love to see this slider in a little bit bigger of a package. That's maybe, 2.5 to 3 feet long in total. And this isn't to say that this current size is bad, because I think personally that this is just about the perfect size for a slider, especially if you're doing a lot of traveling. Even for somebody who's like shooting weddings and stuff, this would be great for that. So I think if iFootage came out with a Shark Slider Nano Plus or a Nano XL or something like that, that would certainly be welcome. With that said though, aside the fact that I have been sent this unit, if I hadn't and I was on the market for a motorized slider that is hassle-free and incredibly easy to move around because of the size, all the while still maintaining great functionality, then this is precisely the slider that I would inevitably end up with my eyes on and very likely going with, because it's just an overall great package of all the features that you could possibly ask for at a very reasonable cost. So if you are interested in learning more about the Shark Slider Nano yourself or picking one up, there will be links to do both down in the description below. So make sure to go check those out. And also I will be leaving links for the TC7 tripod as well as the Komodo K5 tripod head as well if you're curious about those. But that's just about it for this video, so make sure to hit the like button down below if you enjoyed this video, and also make sure to subscribe for future videos from me. You can also go and find my last video by clicking right up there, and probably one of the most favorite videos I've put together in the last year by clicking right down there. And with that, I hope to see you in the next video. Peace.